Welcome to The Shield Within. The issues discussed on the Shield Within podcast do not reflect the opinions of any specific agency. They are the views of the host and the guest. Any persons discussed may be fictional for comedic purposes only. This podcast is rated explicit and listener discretion is advised. Listening to The Shield Within may trigger repress or suppress memories or experiences. Please contact a mental health professional at your earliest convenience. It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in,
to the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release
that finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
Here we go. We're going to call this 2.0. Welcome to the Shield Within.
Welcome.
Because Mark the Cop's an idiot, this is going to be our second time around. We only had 2 of our 6 microphones. We're super excited to be here tonight. We have the one, the only Mr. Scott Medlin of the 10 Code Mindset.
Well, appreciate that. Thank you.
It's like, man, we just talked for, 25 minutes and then realized, oh, shit. So we also have...
The Mr. Hat.
And...
The Kelly.
And...
Dr. David.
And...
FD Donnie.
The FD Donnie. Yes, and myself, Mark the Cop. Thanks for listening in. We're kind of coming off a high because we did the Tri-County mental health. I don't know why the hell I'm having such a freaking block with that. Yeah, I'm eating boogers or something.
The line.
But Tri-County Mental Health had their advanced CIT training today. Scott was the... opening speaker, is that what we want to call that? Yeah, so we spent the first 4 hours of the class with him, getting the 10 Code Mindset. I was so blown away with that. So before we get too deep into this again, so we know social media. We're on Instagram, so stop by and give us a like. Facebook, / The Shield Within. Please stop by and give us a like there because we need to get more interaction. www.theshieldwithin.com. You can hit the coaching button if you want to talk to Dr. David or lessonslearnedcoaching.com. And don't forget Patreon. So for all that change you got laying around in your console, instead of giving it to Shecky down on the corner, you can give it to us
Shecky's
instead.
still down at the corner.
Shecky's down there,
Still down
yes.
there,
I like the will work for food sign, beggars. So we were begging. And what we're going to do with that money is we're going to give it back to people that actually make a difference, like our friends at the Chip Terry Fund. Chip Terry Fund. Have you heard of them there, Scott? Chip Terry Fund. We had Joe Terry on. She's the one that actually facilitated me getting this stellate ganglion block, which was amazing. Yeah. So the Chip Terry Fund does that. So Chip Terry Fund for first responders. So to support them. So we get enough money in there, we're going to look to make a donation out of that. Otherwise, everything else here at the show, Mark the Cop pays for it out of his pocket, and we don't do this to make money. We do this to get the message out. And the number one thing we're doing right now is we're killing ourselves as first responders. And that's what you do, right? With the 10 Code Mindset, we want to keep people alive. The Shield Within, Dr. David and I been together for years. But we need to get that number down. That number right now is at 77. It's terrible, isn't it, Mr. Hat?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes. Remember I told you on the break. I need to hear you chatting more.
Yes. And there's a lot of good things to help with that.
Right.
And
Right.
Lots and lots. And we're going to talk about a few of them here.
That's right. Dr. David.
Bro, it's good to talk with you again.
You too. Deja vu. How's this going to go?
I'm going to start from a different angle this time. The 10 Code Mindset. There's going to be people listening to this have no idea what the hell that means.
Right.
How about you tell us about the 10 Code Mindset?
I started out pretty much focusing on speaking to police. So what screams police? 10 Code. But I'm not a mental health professional by any means. However, I've done research about it. I've spent numerous hours being treated for mental health, to which I'm open about. Right. I've written books about it. But I thought, at first I was going to have the mental health school for law enforcement or something like that. But the state of North Carolina said, no, you can't do that because you're not a mental health professional. I said, you know what? They're onto something. So I thought, why not a 10 Code Mindset? Because I can talk about building your mindset, which is necessary. People go to the gym, to work on gaining muscle mass or tone or whatever, but and that's pretty well known in law enforcement. You need to stay in good physical shape to look credible and also hold your own, and then also it can help your body withstand the stress of the job, stuff like that. But mindset in general in America, period, it's just it's just second hand now, as in not primary focus of a lot of people. And it's just what amazes me, that a lot of the things that are not going right in your life, you don't have control over them, but if you work on your mindset day in and day out, then you'd be surprised just how much more of a strong, resilient perspective you can have on things. And I thought to myself, let's just call it the 10 code mindset, because we want to communicate well with ourselves and focus on our mind, and therefore get through whenever challenges happen, whether it's on the job, off the job. We come out thriving, and thriving doesn't mean you have to live in a multi-million-dollar mansion or anything like that. Thriving means growth. Thriving means improvement. It's a constant work in progress. Let's work on our mindset, and I'm proof that you can come up from some pretty bad places to achieve success on the other side of that pain.
What's 10 code mean?
Just it's how a lot of police communicate on the radio. So I knew that police would be like, wait a minute, 10 code, what's this guy got to say? Because I'm clearly talking to primarily law enforcement, but I mean, I have spoken to corporate security, I have spoken to the firefighters, I have spoken to veterans. We all have a human mind. So
exactly.
We all know 10 code is in Miami County we have signals.
Okay.
Like signal 1 means you're out of service, or a signal 8 means you're crazy. But 10 code 1050 means crash, or 1010 or 10100 or something
10200
like 10200, something like that.
I hate when that happens on duty.
right
No pun intended.
10200 is when you have to poop, right?
Or 104, just simple.
Right, 104 is an acknowledgement, but 10 code is a list of codes that is, it's the code in which you're communicating.
Like you just simply 228573, or something like that. It tells your dispatcher and other officers something real quick without saying, "Hey, I'm going to be stopping this car." And
it's for people in scanner land that doesn't. It's to set the people off in scanner land. Yeah, that if you don't know what a 1050 is.
Yeah.
What is that? I don't know. Well, it's traffic crash.
So it's kind of a shorthand.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So 10 code.
Yeah.
It's police. Mindset.
Gotcha.
Right.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. And so let's have a thriving 10 code mindset.
Right.
And I ran that name by a multimillionaire marketer, and he said, "Bro, that's fire. Go with it." I said, "Well, you're the millionaire for marketing, so I'll take your word for it." And I went with it.
And here you are. How many years later?
Let's see. I started my first presentation after writing I wrote my first book April of 2020, wrote my second book September of 2020. My first presentation, I think, was like November of 2020, and here I am finally giving in-person. So early 22 is when I started doing in-person events. Yes. Okay. But that's when a lot of people were getting back to in-person events anyway. Yeah.
Right. And the podcast is, for anybody that hasn't listened to the 10 Code Mindset, it's really easily listenable. It's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes, and it's very focused. It's very efficient. It's the kind of thing where a lot of content can come out in a very short time.
Right.
And you have good guests, good topics, just a lot. There's the last one you had on habit breaking.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate you listening to that.
That was really good. Could you talk about that for a second? It's really good. The latest episode of Scott's podcast is really, really good.
Well, I'm on the spot now. No. I found that during my law enforcement career, I was focusing on things I couldn't control. Say, whether I'd put in hours of work into a felony case summary and then it was pled down to a misdemeanor, and I was just frustrated that the district attorney's office would do such a thing. That kind of stuff. I had no control over that. I would get upset when they would come down with a new policy that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I had no control over that, but I still let it eat me up. And the longer I was in the career and the more I got upset about certain things that I shouldn't have been upset about, eventually after hitting an all-time low, like you get to a point where there's just so much, you just can't tolerate the pain anymore. You have to change. But my message to people is, why wait? Let's just optimize your mindset now. But I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on what I can control. And I started working on controlling my habits, because I was in the habit of complaining, the habit of procrastinating, and the habit of many other things. And I started researching and listening to people who had mastered their habits, or at least were consistently working on it and specialized in teaching about it. And what I realized is that bad habits are very easy to form, but can make your life a living nightmare. Good habits are hard to form, but can make your life and quality of life a heck of a lot better. That doesn't mean challenges won't happen. It doesn't mean you won't lose family and go through grief. It doesn't mean any of that, but at least you have habits in place that can help you weather the storms and good times in life. So to replace a bad habit with a good habit, you really need to focus on what makes that bad habit harder for you to accomplish, essentially. So there's two questions I've noticed from studying Brian Tracy, James Clear, John Asseroff, Ed Milet. I can name off a few others that I did my research from. There was two questions that were kind of common. What makes it obvious? What makes it easy? So on a bad habit, you want to make it less obvious, less easy. So I use the example when I'm up presenting, how I know I'm the person that if I buy a bag of cookies and it's in the pantry, I'm not going to have just one or two. I'm going to have like a roll or the whole bag,
Right.
Like the Girl Scout cookies, you get the 2-pack Thin Mints. I mean, I will eat a whole roll of half the box.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I don't even buy them. Therefore, they're not in the house. They're not obvious. They're definitely not easy to get to because they're not even in the house. But for a good habit, how can you make it obvious? How can you make it easy? Is there a gym on your way to work? That's obvious. It's easy. You can go there and just leave early enough. Or say you need to be in the habit of your finances. Well, leave a darn book on financial wellness on your pillow so that before you go to bed at night, you're reading it. And you're making these things obvious. You're making them easy. And it's not going to come easy. But the more you just take it step by step, your brain starts to rewire itself. And eventually you can replace a bad habit with a darn good habit. And it's definitely worth doing considering you're already, particularly law enforcement, in a very stressful job as is.
Yes.
Focus on what you can control, which one thing being your habits.
Yes. The way you think, the way you act, the way you make decisions, the way you make priorities. I had a guy a long time ago who came into my life because he had decided he was using too much cocaine.
All right. Well,
I figured if he was
David, I'm sitting right here.
So much for confidentiality.
Sorry, just kidding. Okay.
For the record.
And he was very aware, because his wife had been very clear with him, that if that didn't stop, he was going to lose her and their little girl. So he decided that he needed to stop, and he wanted to know how to do that. And I said, if you don't have any in the house,
Yeah.
it's going to be, then you're going to have to start making phone calls and go somewhere. Somebody's going to come to the house. A whole lot of arrangements need to be made if it's not at the house. And at the time, knowing what he did for his life, which was, a long day job, you get home 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and there's none in the house, you're going to be too tired to go anywhere. You're going to be hungry. Your wife's going to be sitting there wanting your attention. Your little girl's going to be running around wanting to, good night, daddy, that kind of thing's going on. If you don't have any in the house, it makes it a lot easier to start a good habit.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely. And the things with habit, it's what's amazing to me, and I wish I was taught this when I entered the Marines, when I entered into law enforcement, is our brain is not designed to make us happy. Like you have to put in the work to keep yourself in a good, healthy state.
Right.
And habit is basically our brain, our conscious mind passing off a task to the subconscious mind where our habits lay. And a lot of what we do during the day is based on our subconscious programming. So we do things without even thinking about it sometimes, which is, that's a habit. So it's like you really need to be aware of this stuff and continuously work on habits that can help you because, like I said, you're already in a stressful job. So let's focus on habits along with many other things, but habits is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to start now where we started before. I love that because I want everybody to know the present. Also, one thing while we're in the present, what's the name of your newest book? What's the title of your newest book?
Well, I got one in the works. I haven't titled it yet.
Okay.
Yes, this will be number 5. But cool. The last one I made, 101 Useful Tips for Rookie Police Officers. That was released June of 22.
Very good. Very good.
And it's resonated well with some. In fact, there's one big department in the middle of the country. They buy it every few months for their rookies that graduate from their academy. That means a lot. Because I miss being a training officer. I do. But essentially, in its different form, I'm still training some rookies out there, and that's what I like about it. It's pretty cool.
What did you like about being an FTO?
I felt like I could make more of an impact for that rookie police officer than the chief or captain or sergeant that wouldn't see them very much. I mean, the sergeant, but like the higher ups, I just felt like it could be more of an influence for them. And also, they were already like the complainers, the naysayers, the officers had bad habits and didn't have a good work ethic. I mean, they're out there. And I didn't want the rookie to be like that. I just wanted to be as best I could for them so they could do that much better for the public and be efficient in their job. But also when they started training, hopefully my impression would go. Now, don't get me wrong. There were times I made mistakes, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I really enjoyed being an FTO for sure.
Cool. Very cool. Why'd you stop doing it?
I was working K-9 the last time I was training somebody. And unfortunately, I let that job consume me. And I pretty much let it become my identity, and I wasn't present at home. And what I mean by being present was I was physically there, but mentally I was still focused on the job.
Yeah. Yep.
And I would literally on days off go bring my baby son at the time, my oldest at the time, just a baby. I would bring him to daycare on my days off.
Really?
It made no sense. It's like, well, looking back, I was like, why'd I do that? I just wanted to relax and be with the dog and have a good day and then go back into work. That's all I cared about.
Yeah.
I mean, I cared about him, but it was like, that's what I was focused on.
Right.
And so yeah, if anyone's making that mistake, please stop now because your children are going to remember you for a long time. And if when that day comes, you can't work at the department, they're going to move on without you without even thinking twice.
This whole table is
and they're not going to
violators of this.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Table right here, man.
Right.
Yeah, they're not going to remember. Woohoo, boy! Dad missed my game because he worked more overtime. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, that's why because I got off patrol because my wife had enough.
Right.
And she had every right to say that. Don't get me wrong, the guys gave me a hard time.
Yeah.
But I let it get to a point where there was no point of return. I had to leave K-9 to save my marriage. And I was not going to put a job ahead of my marriage.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And it's our good friend Nick talks about the cult and how that mindset is a cultish style mindset. And you said the guys really gave you a hard time. And I'm thinking, well, you whipped or, probably something like that was said.
Yeah. Go to your wife's dresser, pull out the drawer, put this box back on the top, grab your balls back. And
exactly. But how many times, and we talked about this after the seminar today.
Yes.
When you spoke, Scott, about you had to make a choice, and Donnie had to make this choice. Job, family.
Yep.
And it should always be family. And I think Kelly can talk about this.
Absolutely.
How many times did we put the family on the back shelf for the job?
24 years.
Yeah, exactly. Because you get into this mindset that you sacrifice everything for that job. You agree with that, Mr. Hess?
Oh, yeah. The cult.
Yeah.
Like my department, you work the hardest, you get the newest car.
Yeah.
You work the hardest, you get a new uniform ribbon, and you get to stack your uniform ribbons and look nice and do this and do that. If you don't get that by taking off. You don't get that by putting the job second. So yeah, here, do this.
Right. And
you get rewarded, you get patted on the back, you get plaques to hang up on the wall, all that kind of stuff. Everything that everybody loves as a young go-getter.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kelly.
I did all of that without the reward. I didn't get a medal.
Yeah.
Which you said that one morning I was off, and you and Dan was down on I think Barber Drive, and Action Jackson sent me a letter. He was a high-ranking person what was he with this medic?
The assistant chief for oil.
He was the assistant chief, yeah. And he sent me a letter. And when he arrived on scene, Kelly and our good friend Dan, who we're going to have on here very soon,
Good.
were doing, in his words, excellent CPR. They had removed him from wherever he was, and they had the wherewithal to drag him into the living room and start CPR until the medic got there. And he was so impressed with these officers, and Dan Kelly was there first. I recruited them out of the same recruit class, and Kelly started first, and a year later Dan came. And they're in there working the scene. It was just those two, correct, Kelly?
I don't remember which one you're specifically talking about.
Well, there was a lot.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. So to Kelly's
CPR
defense, but anyway, I put them both in for a life-saving award.
Oh, I recall.
Yes,
I remember.
that one.
I remember.
And I did a very detailed account of the event. I wasn't there even sending the video of their body cam. Not a word. Mike Howard Chief said nothing to these kids. And this is the stuff you need to be rewarding. Mm-hmm. So where am I going with this? It's the cult. You know, why didn't you go out of your way for these? And you know, Action Jackson said if it wasn't for the fact that they recognized it and started CPR early, they literally saved this man's life. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is what the Lifesaver Award's all about. Mm-hmm. But not a word.
Had you have messed up, you'd have heard from that chief in a second.
You
goddamn right you would have.
Sure.
From that guy, he over-disciplined everybody.
Yeah. You'd have something with his signature on it for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. And then there was one night we were in Hinders, and me and two other friends. We were talking about going to D.C. for Police Week, and we had a guy at the table, very next table, had a heart attack. And the one colleague helped us, he's like, Sarge. I'm like, oh, shit. Because this guy's like,
oh, no.
in the chair, and his wife's shaking him. She's like, Dave, are you awake? You know, and then,
what did you have for dinner?
Yeah, exactly.
Cancel mine.
So, you know, we started CPR right away and got him on the floor, and we cleared everything out, and then watch everybody fumble fucking trying to dial 911. We're talking about panic. And so we're doing CPR, and in walks FD Donnie. You know, we're doing basic life support. Donnie's getting ready to hook him up.
Right. Take a little ride.
And this guy was dead, man. I mean, no breathing, no pulse, nothing.
Yikes.
Bowels let go, bladder let go. You know, so we did our thing. And, didn't get shit out of that either.
The news covered it.
The news did, because Dan sent an email to the chief of Miami Township. Ron Hess, I'm going to go ahead and say that because he's retired now. Thanks, Ron.
God
Great guy.
Ron.
Love you. And Ron was like, holy shit. And he responded back, this is exactly what I expected my officer at the time. And Dan the man was the guy that did it, the other Dan, who was just recently retired from law enforcement. And he said, I expected nothing else. And then he sent the same email to Chris's chief. And Chris's chief said the same thing. You know what my chief said?
Nothing.
Worse.
Oh.
Why wasn't there an incident report done on this? And I can't believe him, blah, 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 blah. He sent this really scathing email back to Dan.
Mind you, the patient refused treatment when we got there and drove himself home. Well, to the hospital.
Well, he was a cardiac nurse at Reed Hospital in Richmond, Indiana. So he wanted to be in his home hospital. They admitted him for 3 days. Yes, he drove himself home.
They brought him back.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Drove himself home to Richmond, Indiana.
Did they make him pay his tab?
I bought it. I paid for it.
You should.
I absolutely did.
They should.
I said, "Don't worry about it. I got this."
Hey, he forgot
and
to pay his bill.
He was so upset that we paid his bill that Hoy, if you're listening, hello. The bar manager.
If you're not listening, no.
Yeah.
Don't worry
Why aren't you listening, you fucker? But he said the guy called over and he said, "Oh no, I want to pay my tab." And he said, "No, the officers that were here paid for it, so don't worry about it." But he bought each of us a $50 gift card to Hinders, who they don't pay us to say this, but they have the best fucking wings in Miami County. And if they were open tonight,
they're not a sponsor.
They're not,
yet.
but if the fuckers were open tonight, that's right. We'd be treating Mr. Medlin to Hinders after this, but they're not. Anyway, but you know, things like that, those are the things that we need to be celebrating, and those are the things we need to be rewarding our officers for. But somehow we got to this attitude that we're not rewarding people. And the cult is, once you leave, and when I left law enforcement in 2021, I got you're dead to us now.
Pretty much.
There is no, hey man, how you doing? Or we miss you, or things like that. And when I walked out the door slammed, the lock got locked. And it's like, if you talk about this guy, if you talk about Mark the cop, you were shunned, which is sad.
When I left, actually, the female sergeant blocked me on Facebook.
Wow.
And one of the dispatchers did too.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
why?
I didn't leave for bad reasons. Like, I wasn't in trouble or anything. I just
not
done.
in the club anymore.
I was done. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And
I was like, why did you have to block me?
Did they do that to you, Jeff, when you left, Mr. Hat?
No.
Well, and how do you not like Mr. Hat? I mean,
right. They were pissed. They're like, how dare you fucking leave me?
You're like, I'm 88 years old.
My office had like 6 chairs in it because people just come in and because you were like Mark, they just want to be around you, because they couldn't be around a lot of the other people. And
right.
How dare you leave me?
Yeah, that's true.
Come with me.
But see, the reward thing, I think, is the opposite in my departments, because it's good and they acknowledge it, but then people have lost their jobs trying to achieve it by skewing numbers, because there was such an emphasis on how many awards you get, how many uniform ribbons you have, and stuff like that. So people would go the opposite and try to skirt the system, and they're going to get caught eventually, because we're all about activity and numbers and stuff like that. So that changes the mindset, because they don't want to be left behind. They want to be labeled as a thug. So the overly ones, and so I mean, my department pat you on the back for coming in early. Woo, good job. Hey,
The thing
it's just like almost too much.
Right. The thing about coming in early and working all those overtime shifts is that when you leave, nobody fucking cares.
No.
All the time I sacrificed away from my family, and I can tell you, there was one year on Christmas Eve, Dr. David, you ain't gonna believe this, I went in and worked from midnight to 4 a.m. because there was literally no one to work. And the sergeant calls me begging me, and my wife is like, where the fuck are you going? Going to work. Gotta go to work. Yeah. And who fucking cares? And when I left, they gave me my gun, my credential, and an old an evidence bag. And the pain in the ass that I had to manage while I was on days is the person that gave it to me.
Hey, can you give the bag back when you're done with it?
Yeah, the then deputy chief's like, well, when are you coming in? I'll be there at 11 o'clock. Well, we'll be sure we're here, he says. Yeah, both of them left. Neither one of them wanted to be there when I showed up.
They just did that to Dickie, too.
They did. Yeah, another officer we had that left, they avoided her, and it's just like, you're dead to me. And it's... I can tell you, and this is where I'm going to step us into, is admin betrayal. And it is a deep wound to be betrayed by those people. Because I would have given my life up for that job. I would have stepped in front of a shooter to protect Kelly when Kelly worked for me. I would have done the same thing for Jeff. I would have done the same thing for anyone in this room. I would have laid my life down for. Only to discover that had I done that, nobody fucking cared. And let me tell you something, that is the deepest form of betrayal you ever have. And the fear is that it would have been so useless. And Scott, go ahead. I can see the look on your face.
Well, when you said the admin betrayal, I was fortunate where I did have some admin people that were leaders. Thank goodness.
Thank God.
And I gravitated towards them as much as I could. The other ones I knew were just, well, as you say it, toxic managers.
Yeah.
When you talked about the admin betrayal, nothing irked me more than when they would say, thank you for what you do. And I'm like, you have no idea what I do. You're not paying attention. It wasn't necessarily betrayal, but it was just like
dismissal.
Yes.
No,
Dismissal, disconnect. It was just like, oh my gosh, you just said you don't care without saying you don't care. I mean,
Did they ever look at your name tag like, oh, hey, hey Kramer, how you doing? And you're like, my eyes are up here, and they're like, hey, thanks, I appreciate what you do.
Yeah,
like, you didn't even know my fucking name. How are you gonna? But it's like, do you not hear yourself?
Yes, I can't stand that phrase. Oh, thank you for all you do. And one time, a higher up thanked us for being at a mandatory event where we had to work.
Are you fucking shitting me?
I was just like,
you're welcome.
And I'm not good at like hiding how I feel. I mean, if I don't like you, you're probably going to notice it. But like, I laughed. Nobody else laughed, and I was like, "Well, thanks for the backup, guys." You know, he just thanked us for being at a mandatory event. And don't get me wrong, I know that comes with the job. I wasn't mad that I was there, but thank you for being here, and thank you for what you do. Come on,
it's like
throw
hey,
me
buddy.
a pizza party.
I was saying that, but the hot dogs were good.
Some M&Ms.
Good God. So with admin betrayal, I think about all the time over, because at my former agent, I was there for 20 years, and it being a police officer was who I was. It was my persona.
Yeah, same here.
It was what I did. It was what I projected. It was I ate, slept, and shit it. And, you know, there again, I sacrificed everything because, you know, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I was like, yeah, you got to be there for the job. And I really did truly love what I did. I loved being a cop. When it was good, it was great. It was the best fucking job ever. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be there all the time. I mean, do you agree, Kelly?
Absolutely.
I mean, we would talk the job.
Had so much fun.
Yeah, we did. We had a blast. And our crew, you know, we had a great picture. Scott took a picture with the Crown Vic yesterday. And when I got promoted, another officer drove it, and then it was Kelly's car.
Oh, cool.
Before when it was still marked, Kelly was the last officer assigned to that cruiser, and then it went into the travel car fleet. But the admin betrayal I think is so deep that I think it's worse than being cheated on by a spouse. Because I think the stakes are so much deeper. I think if it's not deeper, it's on that same level. And what most people aren't realizing right now is that some of these people, and it seems to be the status quo with some managers, not leaders, because like what Scott said, leaders don't do that shit. The managers are the ones that do that shit. And that's where a lot of officers right now are like, fuck yeah. You know, and we're not in this business to badmouth the leaders. It's the managers on the job that are not doing what they need to do. And I think if we have those managers out there, the best thing you can do is just go ahead and retire. Get out of the ranks, because we need to get the leaders in there. And what the leaders do is the leaders care about people. And do you feel that we see a lot? There's been a shift. And I think the shift started after Ferguson. I think the shift started at that period of time is when we had a lot of Lexapol, and not that Lexapol's bad, but I think it's at that time where Lexapol started hitting, body cam started hitting, and it started to be more, how do we discipline these guys and gals, instead of being, how do we support them? How do we take care of them? And you know, every time I fucked up, I was always telling on myself. My boss never had to come to me. Mm-hmm. I always went in and said, hey, man, I jacked this motherfucker up the other night. So you may hear about it. And if he did, here's the tape. Here's what went on. You know, I was always forthcoming with all that. And I don't understand where this need to make an example out of the member is. And have you seen that, or have you had that, Scott, with your travels around the country?
Yeah, well, the officers don't feel supported. By certain, not all, but some. Yeah, they don't feel supported. They feel like if they screw up, they're going to be like paraded around as in, look, we have this officer. We will sacrifice this officer so the angry mob does not come after us. Yeah. Even though no matter what we do, the angry mob will hate us regardless.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, but fortunately, it's not everywhere. I can tell you right now, my gosh, down in Florida where I am, oh my, the sheriffs down there, they're like, no. Criminals bad, cops. Yeah, I mean, hey, if they screwed up, they'll own it. But for the most part, it's like, no. We're not apologizing because my police officers or my deputies or whoever enforced the law and your feelings got hurt. That's basically it. Yeah.
And that's the type of leadership we need. We need more support. We need you leaders to be more in support of the officer. And you know, there was a chief here in the Dayton area. He was of a suburb, and you know, we were talking about how do you take care of your people. And there was an officer that made a bad decision and got into a fight off duty, and he got charged with assault. So instead of cutting the guy's head off and putting it on a stick, like we see so commonly, what the chief did was say, look, man, you fucked up. You understand that, right? The officer says, yes. You're in a cush job right now. You got a great special assignment, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, that goes away. And this is part of your punishment. You're going to midnight shift starting tomorrow. And you're going to be there for a year. That's your punishment. And we're going to give you a day off without pay or whatever it was. But what I want to do is, you're a good officer. You just made a bad decision, but I want to retain you. So, and at the end of the punishment period, which is the 12 months, you can reapply for your old special assignment. To me, that's leadership. Instead of like, now you get criminal charges filed against you. It's like, where did we go down this path? Why do we think that criminally taking an incident, and if you're wrong, you're wrong. And so I'm just wanting to kind of wrap my mind around, why are we criminally charging officers when it should be more of a administrative charge? Does that make sense? You know, we're going to go to the prosecutor on this. Really?
Well, I mean, the incident that happened in Atlanta where that officer, they got into a scuffle with a guy, and he ends up running, and he shoots his taser at the officer. Yes. And the officer did what any other officer would be trained to do. Like that can incapacitate you for 5 seconds or however long he's holding down the trigger. So he shot him, and they did the whole head on a stick thing, and went to charging him, and then the charges got dropped, if I'm not mistaken, and he I read a headline like he was going to try to reapply to get his job back. But they went after him all to just, in their opinion, I'm sure it was save face or whatever, but it was like, no, hang on a second. This doesn't warrant that.
Right.
But they went there.
So that's the admin betrayal, what I'm talking about. And I'm sure that officer would have laid his life down for that department or anyone on it. You're willing to do that. You know the risk going in. But when you have that and you experience it, like in my case, I get jacked up. You've all seen it. You've all heard it. You've heard it on past episodes. It's like, oh, here, Mark the Cop goes again. Why don't you get over it? How do you get over something like that? I do EMDR. I've had the stellate ganglion block twice. But as we talked about, as you spoke of in the seminar this morning, when you're experiencing that and you haven't healed it, it's just as real today as what it was at the time it was going on. And with my book, I was getting my chops busted the other day by Nick and Sergeant Michael Segru about getting my book done, and it's coming up on the 5-year anniversary of that. And I think, it's right. It's time to get that done. So I'm going to get that done over the winter, as I'm going to get the book completed and at least get it out. But, the reason why I avoided it is because it's still raw. Yeah.
Yeah. The thought still has, the thought and the memory still has an emotion attached to it. Therefore, you feel the emotion, your mind and your body go right through it as if you're still in the moment when it happened.
Yeah.
And that can lead to, like, you take this incident, you take that memory, you take this bad encounter, all these emotions, and they can just have a very bad compounding effect.
They really do. Yeah. They really do. And it's just like with Kelly and I went through a critical incident together. And it was, how long, David? Me getting over that.
You and Kelly? That incident was
2017.
17, right.
Yeah.
And you were seeing Jerry at the time, I think, or started to see Jerry after that incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it basically led you to your set of solutions. I mean, your EMDR cleared up a lot of shit. Eventually, you went to see Molly.
Yeah.
I mean, all the solutions just started to compound each other, much like the problems do. Solutions did. Each set of solutions gave you another direction, another layer of solution, and you end up with a stellate ganglion block, and your life's different.
Go ahead, Kelly.
And I didn't deal with it until the first time I met Dr. David.
Right.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago, and it was something that you'd buried away for a while, wasn't it?
Yep.
You know, it was a armed encounter with a guy that was a suicidal transvestite, and Kelly was doing everything correctly, and I rushed it, plain and simple. And as David has said before, he said, "You are beating yourself up over this. You made one error, and you're not forgiving yourself because of it." So I kind of reflect on that day, and I thought, what if all that would have went horribly wrong? How would that have been portrayed? How would those people, because the people that were in charge when I left, were they in charge then? How would the reaction would have been? Because that would have been traumatic. We would have lost, what, Kelly?
3 at least.
At least 3 of us. Yeah, he would have killed 3 of us.
You, me, and...
You and me immediately.
You, me, and then Dan.
Yeah. And that's how it was. The guy was armed with the Mosin Nagant Russian military rifle.
Dang.
Shot a .308 rifle. It went through our vest.
Oh, 100%.
Through butter, yeah.
Wow.
Jimmy would have came in strong at the end, though. He would have.
Right. No disrespect to anyone, but it was a gigantic clusterfuck, and it was just...
No, he was our Marine. I was serious.
Right.
He was.
Right. But I rushed that scene based upon bad habits that were developed earlier. Because at the time, our policy was to intervene whenever we had a mental, and this guy was a mental. And we've done it before. We got in, kicked the door in, put the guy in for a 72-hour evaluation, blah, blah, blah. But, it's just like after that, when we did what we had to do and we called out the SWAT team, we were chastised for calling out the SWAT team. I can remember hearing the sergeant on the scene from the sheriff's department, and he's getting his ass chewed by the sheriff. Who the fuck called out my goddamn SWAT team? And I'm looking at the guy. I'm like, we had an armed, suicidal subject. We talked Kelly, who was not trained in hostage negotiation, H&T, talks the guy out of the fucking house, talks him into throwing down the rifle. We had a hostage negotiator come down from another SWAT team who was working. He's like, "Did you say this?" She's like, "Yeah." "Did you say that?" She's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, just keep doing what you're doing."
Exactly. It was pretty cool. I was like, "Can I have an elbow pad or something?" Because I'm just like in my normal uniform, but
right. And
Can I have that?
Yeah. It's so when you put that whole thing into perspective, and it's just like and we did a debrief on it, and the SWAT commander came down, and we were talking about it. My chief pokes his head in the door very angrily and says, "What are you guys doing?" "We're doing a debrief on the incident." "Oh." And he just walked away.
Oh, gosh.
I'm doing my own critical stress debriefing, right. Scott. And it wasn't because, and it fucked me up horribly, but it was for them. I wanted them to be able to process it and have some end to it. In the meantime, I'm fucking twisting in the wind. So when we're talking about admin betrayal, it's just kind of like, did this guy just not have the skill set? Or was it the fact he just didn't fucking care? To me, it was like, we talked about negativity, and you talk about how negativity affects, so my mindset went to, I just don't think he just didn't give a fuck. But we had a whole room full of people who gave a fuck about that incident, right? Mm-hmm. And how the outcome of that was just ridiculous. Go ahead, Dr. David.
When you left your job in law enforcement because of your marriage, because of being a father, did you take any stuff like this with you off the job? Did you leave your career with a sense of like what you've left is good for you to leave?
I knew that I would more than likely settle down after a while and be more present at home, but
right.
But at the same time, if an officer or whoever's on the job now and they might be leaving soon, whether you have to for family reasons, because I eventually did,
right,
or you just get to that day of retirement, like you just can't stay on the job forever,
right.
There are some things that will not leave you. It just doesn't mean because you take the uniform off, turn your gear in, that some of the traumatic stuff or the stressful stuff, it just magically goes away. If it's been suppressed, it's still there.
Right.
But yeah, I was sad to leave. Let's see. I resigned from the K-9 unit in 2016, and then we tried to make law enforcement work for about 5-6 years after that, where I did 4 years in the school, 3.5 years in the schools, and then 1.5 years part-time at a university.
Oh, wow.
But it was just like, what's the long-term goal? It was just like, there's no long-term goal here. It's like, because if I get promoted, I'm going to go right back to night shift or be a patrol sergeant on night shift, and that's not going to work. Mm-hmm. I'll go every other weekend, literally 3 days without seeing my kids.
Yeah.
And that's just, and trying to sleep while 2 boys are awake and at it. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, it was one of those where I've been out of it completely now for 1.5 years or so.
Okay.
And I have noticed that the hypervigilance has gone down.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. I'm not always, I guess, needing to go. Like, I can be present to them. I don't need to always be doing something. Like in law enforcement, first responder, we just got to go. I mean, it's just sometimes it's to run away from negative emotions and keep going. You get used to like the adrenaline rush.
Right.
I don't have that. Now, my wife will tell you different in the sense that, when we have people come over who you don't necessarily care for, you'll just be cleaning the house the whole time. I have a very I have a very hard time of settling down then. But for the most part, or if we're talking about something that irks me, I just start cleaning or just start getting busy.
Can I make you mad at my house?
That's funny. But yeah, I mean, I hope that answered your question. It's amazing. It's amazing how much to me now that I've realized it's easier just to relax.
Mm-hmm. So that suggests you've learned how to relax.
Well, yeah. I mean, eventually after my marriage was affected and my kids were, looking at me like, we need you right now, Daddy. Mm-hmm. And even though they're very young, you can see it in their eyes.
There
was one time I got so irritable, my son like dropped something. And I just yelled, "Stop dropping things!" And he looks at me with just this look like just pure. I was like, "Gosh, dang it, why'd I do that?"
No.
It was complete guilt immediately. I was just like, I can't be this way, and I knew it wasn't him. It was just all these different things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you do have to learn how to relax. You do have to learn how to get in the habit of working on your mindset. You do have to work on focusing on your blessings rather than drowning in negativity. Yes, It all takes work. Like I said earlier, your brain is not designed to make you happy.
Right.
And if like that knowledge right there, if I'd have been taught that in the rookie school, who knows how things would have worked out differently.
Exactly.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. One thing I took out of your seminar today was you were talking about preparing for sleep. And one thing that on the 1.0 version, we were talking about neurological linguistic programming, NLP.
NLP, yeah.
I think that's worth coming back to. But what you were talking about was getting ready for sleep. And the number one thing, especially for those of us that work midnights, is we aren't sleeping. And I love what you talked about today, security guard. I exist great. I do great on 4 hours worth of sleep, but yet he slept through your seminar, right?
Correct. Correct.
So no, you're not, bro.
Yeah, dozing off the whole time, and he was like, good guy. I'm not going after him personally, but he just proved my point that we need to focus on sleep, because if you're getting less than I mean, if you're getting 4 hours like he was, you're going to be dozing off during class. I gave him a hard time about it. I mean, rightfully so.
Exactly. And I can remember one night when Miss Kelly she was struggling. And I told her, I said, get your ass in station and go to sleep. I'll come in and get you up. Go find a place, get comfortable, and get some fucking sleep. So I think you slept for like an hour and a half. And then,
I thought you were going to talk about the time I fell asleep in the intersection.
Oh, at least I wasn't the only one that had done that.
I know.
Oh,
he was honking at me. Wow. And I was like, oh, it's green. And then I was like, oh, woo. And then Sarge was like, meet me at BP. And I'm like, oh, it was him. Oh, God. I was just hoping it was a citizen.
But we've all been that way. I mean, I went into Speedway one night. Death Metal Dave works there. Death Metal Dave is a guitarist in a obviously death metal band, and I rolled in there to get some coffee. And he's like, "Hey, a little tired, are you?" Yeah, man, I'm fucking hurting. He says, "I know. I sat here and watched you sit through 3 cycles of the light, and finally, some guy pulled up behind me and blew the horn, and then woke me up." I mean, when you're that fucking tired, it's the equivalent of working drunk. And we borrow from Peter. As first responders, we borrow from Peter to pay Paul. I got to be up during the day, so I'm going to go to my kids' game because, they're dependent on me to be there, and I'm going to be that supporting parent, and, I'm feeling good. But, when you go to work, you're just, oh, God, you're fighting to hold your eyes open. It's the most miserable feeling in the world.
Well, that's when you can become a liability, too.
You absolutely are.
You can make that bad decision. You can absolutely treat someone with disrespect, all because you're tired and grumpy. Oh, yeah. I mean, we're tired cops. Bad recipe right there.
Well, and as Dr. Molly Hall said, the first thing she does with her first responders is to get them to sleep.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. And I really loved what you talked about in your seminar today, was getting a good 7 to 8 hours worth of sleep. And I looked around the room and it's hard. Said that, and the heads started shaking no.
There's no way.
No, I mean,
there's no way.
Yeah, it's very tough. It's very, and I mean, but you heard me. I acknowledge that.
Yes.
This is pretty much crazy for me to even say it, but it's necessary. Mm-hmm. So at least here's this laundry list of things you can do to at least increase your chances of getting more than our typical, 3 to 5 hours that we average.
Yeah.
And we talk about, too, with when we talked about with the wives on the line, how important it is to make sure that at home that we're allotted that kind of time. And I think that that's really taken away a lot recently from people, and to working parents, and it's hard to allot for that time, but it's definitely important.
But why aren't you sleeping? Excuse me. Are you online gambling for 3 hours before you go to bed, and you could have gotten,
are you want to talk about, Jeff?
Right. Well, that puts me to sleep pretty fast.
Is that why you're not sleeping?
But I'm saying I've learned that there's a lot of things that are avoiding. And it goes back to your, avoiding pain or whatever. And so you're staying up drinking and watching TV or binge watching or gambling or sexting or whatever, where you could have been maybe getting a couple more hours of sleep or something like that. Right. I found them. So you got to really be open to why. And maybe you can't. You got a newborn kid, and your wife works part-time or whatever.
Right.
There are those things, but there are some guys that are just doing the wrong thing. During the time that they could,
then they should be sleeping, and that's why I liked what Scott talked about. You had the blue lenses or the blue blocker.
Yeah, there's actual glass, because let's face it, a lot of us will check our phone before we go to bed. Heck, I even check my phone just to set the alarm on it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the bright lights to your eyes signals time to wake up.
Yeah.
So there's Blue Blocks has glasses where it'll block the blue light and it'll signal to your brain sunset. Therefore, it's time to go to bed. They're pretty good.
I loved the block. And Susan, if you're in there, my wife's in the other room. You were talking about putting red lights in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Get ready.
All right.
That's why I always mention that story when I spoke in Mississippi, and the guy said, "Now I'm going to have to explain to my wife why there's red light in the room."
Well, I thought that swing in your room helped you rock the sleep.
I was thinking.
With the red light.
Put the red light in there. You're going
right.
Duh.
Did you see my motorcycle mask in there?
Did you see
the one with the
really
zipper
hot?
mouth?
They're really attractive blue blockers.
help on a motorcycle.
Red light. blackout curtains.
You're gonna walk out.
All right, Dave, get us back on the
rails. Go ahead, Donnie.
No, you're done.
Go ahead, Dr. Dave.
Yeah, get us back on the rails.
Yes, please.
How we doing on time?
We can keep rocking.
We didn't even record this.
You know, we're right
We
at
didn't
an
even
hour.
click record.
I'd say we haven't even recorded this yet either.
Well, this time we actually have a recording. We're at 54 minutes. So if Donnie wants to tell himself to start the music or key the music, we can do that. Do we got time?
Yeah, I'm good.
Can we do another episode afterward? Can we
Sure.
Can we do version 2 or 3.0, whatever?
3.0.
So
yeah, I'm good.
Donnie,
Q.
FD Donnie, do your thing.
May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do. As you embrace the risk you must go through. May you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.